days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny
I have a checklist, and I still forgot to turn the microphone on and put it next to my face. It's been that kind of day, folks. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the daily AHNC News Rodeo, or is it the AHNC Daily News Rodeo? I already forgot that I can't forget. I am your host, Hat, as always. Welcome, welcome, welcome to a glorious Friday. It is 41 degrees Fahrenheit outside right now. Spring is trying to spring, but we've seen a pretty big dip in temperatures from previously in the week, but hopefully help us on the way. By the way, remember, this Sunday is leaping forward, spring forward to standard time. We're leaving daylight savings time behind, and I can't wait for this country to do that in its entirety. Maybe the Democrats will finally stop worrying about transgender athletes and get to the important stuff, like stop making us change our clocks every 6 months. We can only hope. So, today is Friday, as I said, which would normally be Florida Man Friday. At the moment, I do not have one for you. Stephen Green has not put out a Florida Man Friday in almost 3 weeks now. So we are left with today's Insanity Wrap. Insanity Wrap is basically a collection of things that are going on, some good, some bad, usually weird. Not quite the same amount of onion fumes over the internet that Florida Man Friday has, but I promise you at least one thing different at the end of every Friday. And so this is Stephen Green's other regular output on pjmedia.com, so I will give you that. With that, let us get to it. Our one Babylon Bee bookend from today, this is the one on the left from their politics section. Biden says if everyone is on their best behavior, he might allow some limited freedoms on July 4th. And there's a picture of a very somber president standing in front of what looks like all the flags from the front end of the Alamo, but maybe that's something else entirely different. Dateline Washington, D.C. In his address to the nation yesterday, President Joe Biden said, if everyone is very good this year, he'll allow Americans to have some limited freedoms on July 4th. Quote, if you're all good boys and girls, we can have a few freedoms back on the 4th of July, he said. It'll be a nice treat for doing such a good job listening. Who's a good boy? You are, Americans. Close quote. Some of the freedoms Biden says Americans will be granted will include the following. Gathering in small groups of 1 to 3. Enjoying barbecued food as long as it's covered in hand sanitizer. Shouting freedom as long as you shout quieter than you speak and everyone is wearing masks. Launching government-approved fireworks that don't spread too much celebration and freedom. And finally, waving flags as long as they aren't the American flag. Americans say they are very excited by the prospect of maybe being able to celebrate some limited freedoms this year as long as they are on their best behavior. Thanks, government, said one man in New York. I'm going to do my best to follow the rules so that maybe the government will let me have some very limited liberties this year. That's what Independence Day is all about. Quote the gentleman. Babylon Bee, everyone. Hitting close to home every time. All right, quick look at the market. By the way, I will not be using Market Watch much longer. I have decided that they are way too MAGA critical to keep with them. They have got my money for a couple more weeks, and then I'll be moving to Seeking Alpha. Seeking Alpha doesn't quite have the same graphical interface as Market Watch. It's a bit less bold, but it is still useful, and the articles are great. I've read several recommendations as Seeking Alpha being a very conservative-friendly site. So, and I have them on my phone. I have for years, so we're going to go with that. And hello, Laura. Hello. So anyway, the Dow finished up almost a whole percentage point today, again breaking record territory at one point, almost touching the 32,800 mark, closing at 32,778 and change. The S&P 500 was up a fraction. The NASDAQ was actually down a little over 0.5%. The tech stocks are dragging it down again. Our Twitter, Facebook portfolio, as you can see on the lower right here, I should say right center, Twitter lost almost 0.5% today, and Facebook lost a full 2% off of their stock price. Our pretend $10,000 buy-in for each of those two stocks, though, the day before they banned President Trump, it's still trending a couple grand over our initial investment. So just to let you know. By the way, GameStop, way up. The GameStop portfolio in general is way up. Only a couple losses today. So we've made tens of thousands of dollars on that initial $7,000 bet, interestingly enough. Gold finished up the barest of bear fractions, and oil is down 0.5%. At $65.65 per barrel of West Texas Intermediate sweet crude. So, quick touch on this article. This is from Market Watch. It's called The 730-Day Presidency, Haunted by 2009 Democrats See Delay as Republicans Plan. So what this article basically refers to is the 2-year presidency that you will normally see when the White House, the House, and the Senate are all with the same party. Normally, as we all know, midterms tend to show a strong showing by the opposing party, at least in the House. And since the Democrats only have a slim majority in the House at present, it should be quite easy for the Republicans to take it over and thereby wrest control away from the legislature for the remaining 2 years of the 46 * Harris administration, or whatever combination thereof we will see over time. I won't be taking any bets as to how long either of them are in office. The over-under on that ain't good. But so this article basically talks about whether or not Democrats are overplaying their hand by being too partisan in the initial days here, by ramming through legislation that doesn't even have any Republican votes. And whether or not that's setting them up for a big failure come 2022. And that it didn't play out well for them between 2008 and 2010. You remember they got health care through the quote-unquote Affordable Care Act, and they also got through the quote-unquote stimulus bill. And then one other piece of legislation that's dropped my mind at the moment, but that was basically all the initial Obama-Biden administration was able to accomplish in their first 2 years. And then they lost the House for the rest of the administration, and we got the Senate back in 2012. So then it was all downhill for them after that. So are the Democrats overplaying their hand, or are they doing what they have to do? And are the Republicans overplaying their hand as obstructionists, or are they playing the long game? So this article goes back and forth on that. But you check it out at your leisure. It's on marketwatch.com. Came out a little while ago. Oh, there it is. So Wall Street bets. Let's just touch on that real quickly. Right now, our $7,000 investment in the top 7 stocks from the GameStop bets portfolio. That $7,000 investment has now garnered us a profit of over $27,000, almost a 340% increase on that initial investment. And today alone, we made just under $2,600. GameStop itself was up over $270 at the end of trading today. Okay, Biden. I teased this in the titles for the different shows. And so here, as promised, but I'm going to skip this article because Stephen Green covers this in detail in his Insanity Wrap, which again looks like we'll be doing. And if there isn't one, there is a Florida Man Friday, then I can always circle back to this. Thank you, Jen Ulianzaki, for that phrase before we get into Florida Man Friday in detail. But suffice to say, everything that wasn't a platitude last night that 46 Asterisk said was a lie. That's it. It was a lie. He pretended that he alone is creating the surge in vaccinations, that he alone is the one who bought enough vaccinations to inject all of America, that he alone got Johnson and Johnson, Merck to work together to co-produce the vaccine, their vaccine, on and on and on. It was all lies. But the stuff he said about basically, well, we can work together, or we can do this if we all work together. That wasn't a lie. It was a platitude. It didn't mean anything, but it wasn't a lie. So let's get into the Capitol riot, a story that won't go away. As we covered just the other day, the Guard has been told to extend the stay of several thousand troops through May 23rd, I believe is the date. So another couple months at least. And we talked about how some Guard members are getting sick from undercooked food or food with foreign articles in them. Metal shavings was one of the things we saw in the article I covered, I believe, last week. And the Michigan Guard specifically was complaining about undercooked food and inedible food. And I understand that a Guard member, God rest their soul, died, I believe, yesterday of an undisclosed medical emergency. So pray for the family for that poor soldier. But turns out that it's not all peaches and cream with this extension of the duty, because the National Guard chief himself, General David Hawkinson, he advised against extending the Capitol deployment. And I have his memo just in a second. He basically says, we don't have the people for this. We're extending these guys way beyond their original duty period. You're not going to get enough of the volunteers you've asked for to fill the slots you need. And I'll add this, the Capitol Police need to get their act together and ramp up their ability to protect the Capitol as Pelosi sees fit in order to let the Guard go home. Because you remember, the Capitol is still surrounded by thousands of troops and razor wire. Actual razor wire. The kind of stuff we invented for Vietnam to keep the North Vietnamese and the VC out of our villas and out of our fire bases. But so here's the memo, and it's again, this is General Hawkinson. Efforts to date have not secured enough volunteers among supporting states to meet the USCP requests of 2,280 soldiers, nor option B of 1,000 soldiers. Over the past 12 months, states have experienced unprecedented demand for National Guard utilization, related to the virus, civil disturbance, wildfire, hurricane, and flood response, all while meeting every combatant command deployment requirement. Because let's remember, the Guard goes overseas too. Continuing. In addition, the states are currently increasing their internal requirements to support the virus vaccination efforts and posturing for seasonal natural disasters, as well as training for future deployments. This significantly increased operational tempo directly impacts our ability to continue to man the mission with volunteers. To date, only 500 have volunteered to extend through the draft RFA end date, despite our best efforts to marshal more volunteers. Additionally, faced with pressing needs within their states, numerous adjuncts general and governors have expressed their unwillingness to order the involuntary mobilization of National Guard personnel to man the mission. Moreover, I am concerned that the continued indefinite nature of this requirement may also impede our ability to man future missions, as both adjuncts general and guardsmen alike may be skeptical about committing to similar endeavors. Pursuit of other interagency law enforcement options seems highly preferable to requesting involuntary mobilizations under the current circumstances. So, and again, that's General Hackinson himself. Like I say, it ain't all peaches and cream, folks. And welcome, Sunshine RN18. Nice to see you. Scully and Laura and David and everyone else. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here. I see Marcia and Johnny and Pam and Alex. Does everybody remember the Magic Mirror? I do. The Romper Room. Always prayed to hear my name from the Magic Mirror, not knowing that it was a random call out of names and that they didn't give a darn if I was watching or not. But it felt like you were really special when you heard your name called. It's kind of cool. I remember those days fondly. So, again with January 6th, last count, we were looking at 300 people, not 300 charges, but 300 people charged with anything from illegally entering Capitol grounds to impeding Congress and assaulting a law enforcement officer and other things in between. 300. Well, now that's gone up to 400, at least. Got an article here by Jack Phillips from the Epoch Times, quoting the DOJ. The investigation and prosecution of the Capitol attack will likely be one of the largest in American history, both in terms of the number of defendants prosecuted and the nature and volume of the evidence, prosecutors wrote in their filing while requesting a 60-day delay in a case against several alleged Oath Keeper members who are charged in connection to the incident. I thought one of our rights as Americans was to a speedy trial. And thank you, Deb Song, so much. Nice to see you on DLive. I appreciate it. Continuing the quote, while most of the cases have been brought against individual defendants, the government is also investigating conspiratorial activity that occurred prior to and on January 6, 2021. Continuing, some of the conspiratorial activity being investigated, such as the activity under investigation in this matter, involves a large number of participants. So, talking about things on the internet, it's going to get you charged federally, folks. I hope you were circumspect on those chat boards. Okay, so at least 400 people charged, most likely with multiple federal crimes, looking at possibly decades in prison. And again, you break the law. If you're guilty and you're tried properly and convicted, you should serve whatever punishment is deemed lawful and required. I'm all for that. Here's the problem, though. It ain't happening anywhere else. I didn't know about this until just the other day, but there is a fairly large no-go zone around the area where George Floyd died last year, back on May 31st. And it is dangerous. People have died there. The cops are not allowed to go in. There was a shooting just the other day where a person bled out because they wouldn't let cops and ambulances into the area, and while they manually carried the victim out of the no-go zone, they died. So, how bad is it? Look at this.
This area behind me is the George Floyd Memorial. This is where George Floyd was killed back in May. Take a look.
Now, while he's talking, watch those two people clad all in black, one of which has a tactical gas mask bag on their thigh. Watch as they walk up.
These barricades have been set up by protesters and supporters of the movement. They don't allow anyone in, not even the police. It's called an autonomous zone. And
You're going to be in a bad situation here in a second.
I thought if
Two white people, by the way.
we were on this side of the barricade,
You're going to be in a bad situation in a second.
You're going to be in a bad situation in a second, in case you didn't hear that.
what do you mean by
Because you've
bad
been called out
situation?
for what you are and you need to get out of here.
You're going to be called out for what you are, and you need to get out of here.
Go.
We know what you are. You need to get in your car and go.
We know what you are. You need to get in your car and go.
I don't give a who you are. You've been called out for who you are. You need to get in your car and go.
Threatened. Physically threatened for being a journalist filming on a public street, not in the area at all, and no cops anywhere to be found. Nowhere. So there was another riot in Portland last night. They tried to burn down the courthouse. I'm not showing video of that because I don't show riot porn, but I'm sure you've all seen it. It's pretty viral. There were federal officers inside the courthouse, and the Antifa and BLM rioters set part of the protective board around the window, set it on fire quite heavily. It was burning like mad, and then a bunch of officers had to come out in tactical gear and spray it down with a fire extinguisher in order to put it out. Now those boards are specifically placed a little bit away from the building to prevent fire like that from spreading, but still, you can't let that go on. But so again, 400 cases minimum being filed for January 6th. Many of these people have said, that the only thing they did was walk into the Capitol after the Capitol Police waved them in. They were under the impression that they had legal authority to go in. I should say legal authority. They were given a permission, that's what I wanted to say, to go in. So, what about Portland? For 100 days of trying to burn down a federal courthouse, assaulting federal officers with anything from frozen water bottles and slingshots with ball bearings to commercial-grade lasers and commercial-grade fireworks, injuring many, many officers, several times, including 4 who were nearly permanently blinded by commercial-grade lasers burning into their retinas. There were arrests, we were told. William Barr made a big deal the fact that we were going to hold those people responsible and that we were investigating, but we were going to keep it quiet. We're going to do the investigations in the background. We're not going to make any noise. We're just going to do our job and then bring the cases when we've got enough evidence to show that we have a good case, right? That's the way the feds work, right? Unless, of course, it's investigating a presidential campaign and then a president with no legal predicate, in which case you can leak all the time, even though every leak was a complete lie. But again, that's how the DOJ works for Portland rioters. Now, we saw last year that the Multnomah County DA, the county that Portland is in, threw out 70% of the riot cases, including a number of cases regarding assaulting a peace officer. But we still had the federal cases, right? Because remember, they deputized, the feds deputized the Oregon State Police, so they could act as federal agents and charge federal crimes. And as we all know, the federal justice system has a well over 95% conviction rate. I believe it's 97%, because usually the feds have so much money that they can bury you in legal costs, so you just plead and hopefully get a light sentence and get out of the way. That's what happened to Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. They threatened him. They threatened his son. And he was going bankrupt anyway with all his legal fees. So he caved, pled guilty twice in court, lying under oath. But President Trump finally had to pardon him because the DOJ couldn't lift a finger to get the stupid Judge Sullivan, to let the case go. Well, it turns out those federal charges are being dropped. I had a very, very sick analogy that I'm not going to say. Let's just say it involved a soft object falling from a great height. We'll leave it at that. But at first, we were told that it was about a third of the cases being thrown out. And it says here, this is an article from The Blaze by David Urbanski. I love David a lot. And this is an article I covered last week. 4 defendants got off after being charged with assaulting a federal officer, which is a felony. And again, we talked about that last week. Okay, 30%, right? Well, actually, Miranda Devine tweeted out that same day that it turned out that 70% of the charges were dropped. I'm sorry. Let me back up. That was the Portland rioters. 70% from the Multnomah County, as we just talked about. Then she quotes the Blaze article that 30% have been dropped, and those were, of course, the most violent crimes. But Andy No follows that up with this tweet. More than 90% of the local riot-related cases were dropped by the DA. 90%. You'll remember the guy who shot Jay, the Trump supporter who was assassinated on the streets of Portland, that guy was ultimately killed in a shootout with police. He had been charged with a weapons violation at one of the riots just a few days previous to that shooting, and he was allowed to walk with no bail, given a court date, and sent back on his merry way. And 2-3 days later, he killed a man in the middle of a street for being a Trump supporter. Where were the buildings being burned down when that happened? Oh, wait, we don't do that. We shouldn't do that. No one should do that. I decry violence of any type, unless it's in self-defense. And even then, it has to be proportional. 90%, according to Andy No. And if anyone knows, Andy No. I should say, if anyone knows, Andy No will know. Say that 3 times fast. All right. Segueing from a gun crime into a gun bill. You may have heard that the House just passed a gun control bill, part of which is universal background checks. And of course, Democrats keep screaming, gun show loophole. Well, what that really means is private sale loophole, because private sales, as has always been, are not subject to background checks. If I sell a gun to my neighbor, that's my right. And it's his right to buy it in a private exchange. It's called private exchange for a reason. If you want to buy a gun commercially, you have to go through an FFL, a federal firearms licensee. I always have trouble saying that. Federal firearms licensee. You have to go through a background check, and if you pass, they have 72 hours to check you in the NICS system, and if you pass, then you get your gun. If they take longer than 72 hours, you get your gun. Well, the House has decided that's not good enough. So they not only want to make every gun sale subject to a background check, no matter who, no matter where, unless it's a family member or unless it's a temporary loan. But if money changes hands, it's got to go through an FFL, which means one of you is going to have to pay for the background check because FFLs don't do that for free. And as I've said before, you're going to have to drive to wherever your nearest FFL is. And if you live out in the middle of, say, Macomb County, Kansas, it might take you a little while to get to an FFL just to a quail shotgun, I should say an upland bird shotgun, to a local. So that means that private sales between lower income people would be prohibited because they couldn't afford the expenses in regards to making the exchange. It's the same way in California with ammunition. Poor people can't afford ammunition in California because there's a $50 surcharge per box of ammunition. At least there used to be. It may have changed. And they were also talking about requiring photo ID and licensing, I should say, a registration of the ammunition. This is all regressive. It all works against poor people. Now here's the thing with background checks. They're good up to a point. I've just given you the reasons why in this particular instance, it's no good. Also, any of the last 4, 5, 10 mass shootings, none of them would have been prevented under this bill because either the individual was legally allowed to buy the gun, and they haven't changed the requirements, so that still would have applied. They were still legal to purchase a firearm, or they got it illegally, like the school, the Newtown shooter, Sandy Hook, also known as. He killed his mom and then stole the guns from her gun cabinet. He would have been prevented from buying a gun through background checks because he, I believe, had been committed to a mental institution and therefore was ineligible. But that wouldn't, a background check wouldn't have stopped that. None of the other shootings since then would have been stopped by a background check. So typical Democrats trying to pass a law to restrict the rights of people who follow the law without doing anything to curb the illegal actions that they're screaming about. And also, this could very well create a gun registry. Because by requiring a paper trail for every gun transaction, that would allow the government to know where every gun is. And that is very close to having a universal registry. Now, if you want to look at how well universal registries look, go back to Canada. Not too long ago, Canada instituted a fairly wide-ranging gun registry. There were only a few types of firearms that were exempt from the registry, if I remember correctly. After, I believe, 7 years, somewhere in there, they canceled it because it was costing them millions and millions of dollars a year to maintain the registry. They couldn't afford it anymore, and it wasn't stopping gun crime to any noticeable effect. In fact, you will hear Democrats talk about the AWB, the assault weapon ban, that was from 1993 to 2003, under both Clinton and George W. And they say that that bill reduced mass shootings, and then when the bill went off, mass shootings increased. Technically, that's true, but the guns that were banned by the AWB, none of those crimes, except for, I believe, a couple, used those type of weapons. The most often used firearm for mass shootings is a pistol, a semi-automatic pistol. It's the most often you'll see. I can go into why, but that's not necessary. I'm sure you can figure it out on your own. So these make no sense whatsoever. In fact, if I can scroll down in this article a little bit, let me talk about some of the other things they're discussing along with, let's see. Where was that? Maybe it's in the next article. Yeah, here we go. The type of, there's another bill coming through. Senator Feinstein just introduced this. And she's talking about banning 205 different quote-unquote assault weapons. And they're talking about the same thing as the AWB from before. Let me read you this. Oh, this is an article, by the way, from the Epoch Times by Jack Phillips. According to the legislation, which was also introduced in the House by Representative David Cicilline, the ban would encompass more than 205 rifles. Feinstein's bill would allow current owners of the guns to retain possession of them if that gun is transferred to a person. If that gun is transferred, a person has to undergo an FBI background check before getting the firearm. As we said, registry. Okay, here's the fun part. The bill also bans any weapon that has the capacity to use a magazine that isn't a fixed ammunition magazine, which means it can't have a detachable magazine. So you would only be able to load it from the top via a stripper clip. And if you don't know what that means, just look it up. It's a little complicated to explain, but it's basically a system that allows you to load cartridges from the top down into a fixed magazine, also known as an en-bloc magazine in certain guns. Okay, continuing. So banning those, also banning a firearm that has one or more characteristics such as a pistol grip, forward grip, a threaded barrel, a folding or telescoping stock, or a barrel shroud. Okay, my AR covers all of those. All of those. In fact, virtually every AR has at least 2 of those things, unless it's a California AR. And even California ARs, you can detach the magazine. It's just that you have to take an extra step in order to do it. It is a very cumbersome process, thereby preventing you, according to California, from doing quick reloads and shooting even more people. Again, I don't promote anything like that. I don't promote anything like that. But, in fact, a threaded barrel. If you're not familiar with firearms, barrel threading means that there are grooves cut into the barrel. They're called lands and grooves. And by creating that spiral through the barrel, as the bullet fired from the cartridge goes down the barrel, it spins. And that spinning creates a gyroscopic effect that makes it more stable. And it will go further and it'll go more accurately. A non-threaded barrel is known as a smooth bore. Shotguns, some shotguns have smooth bores. There are some hunting shotguns that actually have rifled, but that's another thing entirely. It's also known as rifling, by the way. A smooth bored rifle would have limited range and limited accuracy, which means that if you're aiming at someone and they're further away, you'll most likely miss and then hit whatever's near them, which is exactly the opposite of what you want to do. And that would include a target, for that matter. No threading, no rifling means decreased accuracy and decreased range. So they are basically nerfing these firearms. And again, that did not say that all of the, more than one of those characteristics would make it banned. One or more of those characteristics would make it banned. Now, none of these really have anything to do with mass shootings. I'm probably going to get pulled off YouTube for saying that. None of these have anything to do with that. But that's what the Democrats think. Okay, finally. The bill, quote, requires that grandfathered assault weapons, there's that term again, are stored using a secure gun storage or a safety device like a trigger lock, and prohibits the transfer of high-capacity ammunition magazines while banning bump fire stocks and other devices that allow semi-automatic weapons to fire at fully automatic rates. And again, that's according to a news release from Senator Feinstein's office. Why they include that, I don't know, because as it states here in the article, bump fire stocks were made illegal in March 2019. President Trump signed an executive order banning bump stocks. Just boom, signed an executive order and boom, changed federal law. I don't believe that was constitutional in the slightest. I do not own a bump stock, nor would I ever want to. I don't really like such things. I think they're workarounds that I don't agree with, but that's me. That's me. That is me. I'm not saying anyone else should adhere to my opinion. That's just the way I look at it. As far as I'm concerned, the Second Amendment is the Second Amendment. But again, that's just my opinion of it. Now, there are probably, according to this article, more than 20 million modern, quote, sporting rifles owned by private citizens, according to the NSSF, the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And sporting rifles are an industry term for the AR style rifle. More than 20 million. This law would ban every one of those. Every one of them. Now, 8 Republicans voted for the background check bill. And here are their names. Representative Frederick Upton from Michigan 6, Chris Smith, New Jersey 4th, Brian Fitzpatrick, Pennsylvania 1st, and those are the co-sponsors, and here are the other votes in favor. Vernon Buchanan, for Florida 16, Andrew Garabino, New York 2nd, Carlos Jimenez, Florida's 22nd, Florida's 26th, Adam Kinzinger, Illinois 16. Also, Representative Maria Salazar, Florida 27th. Now, we all know about Kissinger being more than a rhino, basically there's another term for it that I probably can't say on the internet, but anyway, Kissinger is less of a Republican than Bernie Sanders is, in my opinion. I'll leave it at that. Yes, he did, Skullcram. Yes, he did. A Carcano with a right-handed bolt. Yep. Yeah, he was. I can't read the whole thing because I'd probably get pulled off of YouTube. But and I'd like to thank Wretch Smensch for the lemon. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Rex Mensch. I got it now. Okay, that's how it's pronounced. Rex Mensch. I believe I got it right. I would like to be known as a Mensch someday. Hopefully I could aspire to that. So, another story we've talked about off and on is Iowa First. You remember that was a race that took forever to call, because you had 2 candidates that were neck and neck forever. There were a number of legal challenges, but it was resolved, ultimately, in favor of the Republican by 6 votes. 400,000 were cast, but she won by 6 votes. And that is a legal finding. Iowa signed off on it. The courts agreed. Boom. So her last name is Miller Meeks, first name Marionette, and she defeated Democrat Rita Hart by 6 votes. And Hart lost all of her court cases, so Miller Meeks came out on top. Now the law is, you just need 1 more vote than the other guy, and you win. The only time that doesn't work is in runoffs, when you have to have 50% plus 1 in order to go over the top, and then you go into the general, and whoever has the most votes wins. So Miller Meeks won. Well, Rita Hart is a sore loser. And she went to Nancy Pelosi and said, Nancy, can you use the House rules to kick Miller Meeks out and put me in her place? And Nancy, to her credit, said no. Well, now Nancy's changing her mind. There is a committee, a rules committee specifically designed to look at such things. It is, of course, run by the Democrats, because the Democrats have the House, so they have the control of the committees. And they could take her seat away. They could put Rita Hart in place of the lawfully elected Miller Meeks with a stroke of a pen. Now, the last time this was done was in 1995. That was when Tip O'Neill was in charge of the House. And Republican Representative Rick McIntyre beat the incumbent Frank McCloskey. McCloskey is a Democrat. So McIntyre won. But Tip O'Neill decided that the vote wasn't good enough. And so Tip O'Neill tossed McIntyre out and put the incumbent McCloskey back in place. And that created the big rift between the Democrats and the Republicans that has basically stood ever since. The bodies were a bit more congenial and a bit more bipartisan back then, but that created a huge rift that is really yet to be closed. And Pelosi's looking to do it all over again. Man, I'm going to get pulled off of YouTube and DLive for this stuff. Oh well. Oh well. We have each other, right? So Cuomo is firing up the news still, getting into some state news. You'll know that the first thing were the Cuomo killing fields, the nursing homes and extended care facilities. And now we found out the Centers for the Developmentally Disabled, all of whom were forced to take COVID-positive patients without any means of stopping the spread of the disease in their facilities. They had no ability to turn away anyone who was positive. In fact, they weren't even allowed to ask for the test results. They just had to take them. And it didn't matter if they were already a resident or not. If the hospital was going to discharge them to that place, they had to take them. And according to one of the major nonprofit government watchdog groups in New York State, that could have added a good 1,000 people plus to the nursing home death count in Florida. In New York. Pardon me, Governor DeSantis. I didn't mean to do that. Pardon me. So that was going on. Now, we knew about that last year. We'd been talking about it ever since May of last year. And then it started heating up a little bit after the election. And then back in January, the AG for New York, Letitia James, released a report hours ahead of New York's Department of Health issuing the numbers. And Letitia James found that the Department of Health had initially underreported the number of deaths in these facilities by almost 50%. Because unlike every other state in the country, New York was only reporting deaths that occurred on the grounds of the facility. As Mark Levin says, if you got sick and they were taking you to the hospital and you died on the curb, that wasn't counted as a nursing home death. And again, New York was the only state to do that. And now we know why. They were hiding the numbers. Then we found out that one of the aides to the governor told lawmakers last year that they were hiding the numbers because they didn't want the feds to know what the actual numbers were, because they were being investigated by the federal DOJ for possibly killing people against CDC guidelines. And she admitted that outright. And then we just saw a story a few weeks ago where, last week, where not only did that happen, but we found out that government employees, people loyal to Cuomo, people who were not doctors or medical personnel at all, forced the Department of Health to change the reporting in their initial report because Cuomo had his book deal coming up and they didn't want any bad press. And we saw that article from the New York Times themselves. And then, back in January, Ms. Boylan came out with her claim that Cuomo sexually harassed her, including asking her to play strip poker on one of the state's jets, and also making other inappropriate comments to her. Lindsay Boylan, that was her first name, Lindsay, with an E. And then time went by, nobody covered it. She wrote a Medium article, and then things started to explode. And then the dam broke open. And people started coming forward. Women started coming forward. First there were 2. Then there were 4. Then there were 5. And now there are 6. And people are screaming for Cuomo to resign. At first it was just Republicans. And then it was the odd Democrat, including Assemblyman Kim from New York, who said in an interview that Cuomo threatened to, quote, destroy him and his political career if he didn't change his tune about the Cuomo killing fields. And Kim went public with that. And then we started to hear from a lot more people about how abusive and threatening Cuomo and his office could be, including a reporter. I read that article when it came out, who was continuously threatened by the Cuomo administration whenever they were working on a story that was unflattering towards Albany or towards the governor himself. And de Blasio has never liked Cuomo. They've always been at each other's throats. But now de Blasio has specifically called for Cuomo to resign. And now some Democrat representatives in New York are saying the same thing. Let's see. We've got. Let's see if I can get some names here. Don't have any names. I will say the Albany police said the most recent accusation might have reached the, quote, level of a crime that has been referred to New York police for investigation. Also, the state assembly announced that its judiciary committee would have broad jurisdiction to investigate sexual harassment claims against the governor, as well as his administration's handling of the data about coronavirus-related deaths at nursing homes before deciding whether to open impeachment proceedings. I have a problem with that paragraph, specifically where it says his administration's handling of data about coronavirus-related deaths at nursing homes. Data. The data is the little molehill on the mountain. The mountain is the policy that put those people in those facilities in the first place. And again, as we just found out, it wasn't just nursing homes and long-term care facilities. It was homes for the developmentally disabled as well. And as I quoted from the article, those homes saw something like a 50% higher death rate than the state average. Now, we don't know what the type of comorbidities the people in those homes have. Some developmentally disabled people have a weight problem, part of their metabolism. Down's people have that possibility. Not all, but some. One of the common side effects, one of the common problems with having Down syndrome is screwing up your digestive tract. And so that can make weight gain a problem. Not always, but it's possible. There are other things that could also lead to obesity, other maladies. And we don't know things like heart disease or diabetes as well. But that still is a stark number, 50% higher. They also had a very high infection rate. And that is still ongoing, even though positive cases across the country have fallen off the map. They have plummeted, exponentially over the peak just a few weeks ago. And things are looking great. Everywhere, things are looking great. But that is still in place for those homes for the developmentally disabled. That was never rescinded. So we'll have to see where that goes. By the way, help me with the time, because I forgot to fix my alarm. The reason we finished a half hour earlier last week is I never fixed my alarm from when I was doing the 90-minute show. And so when I had it set for the Florida Man Friday reminder, it was a half hour ahead. And that's what happened last week, and it just went off again. I realized I'd forgotten to reset it. So I went to cut away to Florida Man Friday or Insanity Wrap, whichever is up. Come 20 after. So if you guys can help me watch the clock, that would be great. So now moving on to national news. And right now, specifically the 46 asterisk administration. As we all know, one of the very, 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 very first things Beijing Biden did was cancel the Keystone XL pipeline and freeze renewals of gas and oil leases, including fracking, on federal lands, which accounts for a pretty big percentage of our energy sector. And the Keystone XL cancellation killed thousands of jobs, including some, I believe, 6,000 union jobs, unions who told their members to vote for Biden, and then came out afterwards and said, "Why did you do that?" And of course, whenever you hear that, you just have to ask yourself, did they never hear the story about the frog and the scorpion ever? Kind of funny. And we've heard from Republican states like Montana and Utah, who have very large energy sectors, and they have complained about the cutting of the leases, especially Utah. A large portion of the income for the native Ute Indians, UTE. No, I'm not quoting Fred Gwynn. I'm not quoting Joe Pesci from My Cousin Vinny, which is a great movie. But that revenue is a big, big part of their annual income. And by not renewing those leases, they would lose that income. And of course, states would lose millions of dollars in tax revenue, not to mention wage increases for their locals by having these good paying jobs. Be well, David, be well. Take care of yourself. And now we have a Democrat governor coming out and laying it on the line too, and that's Governor Michelle I never remember, is it Lujan or Lujan Grisham? I'll just call her Michelle Grisham, Governor Grisham. She went after 46 asterisk during a virtual event, and what she said was, quote, "Now, with all that said, I'm clearly concerned that right out of the gate, with very little guidance, we have an announcement to stall, right? A moratorium on lease applications, and the reality is a lot of oil and gas right in the Permian, that refers to the Permian Basin in West Texas, which is a big, big fossil fuel field. It's from it's called the Permian Basin because of the Permian was not epoch, the Permian time period when it was covered with forests, and then it was buried under miles of water after the Great Melt, and became carbon fuel. Anyway, so quoting again, in the Permian is on private land in Texas. So wherever you are in the country or on the chamber, however you feel about that, you can simply just move, and that hurts New Mexico, and there are no environmental standards there." Now, Governor Grisham goes on to talk about how New Mexico has some, in her opinion at least, great environmental standards for natural gas and oil drilling and fracking. They have very high methane capture standards, etc. But she says it doesn't make any sense, and that it hurts New Mexico. So there's another state that's going to join in. Okay, I had that out of order. Jerry Nadler and Ocasio-Cortez have also called for Governor Cuomo to step down. Nadler had a tweet. He put out a statement. If you go to Nadler's account on Twitter, it's at Rep Jerry Nadler, Jerry with a J. You can read it, but I'll read you the final line. Governor Cuomo has lost the confidence of the people of New York. Governor Cuomo must resign. Now, Cuomo again said earlier today he is not resigning. He is not resigning. He says he deserves due process, which he does, and that he will leave when and if he is found to have acted inappropriately by the body that is investigating these matters. And again, let's not forget, the sixth accuser, that case has been filed as a criminal complaint. So we'll have to see where this goes. Thumper says in the chat, old Nat'l speaks up. Yes, surprising, isn't it? Antifa is a mirage. That's not his word, but I'll use it to paraphrase what he said to Fleckus when Fleckus did that great curbside interview of Nat'l. Antifa it doesn't exist, but Governor Cuomo has to step down for these sexual assault allegations. Let me look real quickly. I don't believe Nat'l, did he reference the? Let's see. No, he doesn't reference the nursing home thing at all. The killing fields. He just talks about the charges of sexual harassment. That, as we talked about, what was it, yesterday? These sexual harassment charges, as harmful as they are to anyone's career, especially if they're found to be valid, even if a couple of them are, it'll be hard for Cuomo to get out from under. But that's acting as a smokescreen for the fact that he may have killed over 1,000 people unnecessarily. I don't think unnecessarily is the word I really wanted to use. Let's say needlessly. How's that? Needlessly. So we'll see where that goes. One of the greats, just as a human being, not only an NFL great, but a human being in general, is Burgess Owens. By the way, I want to apologize. Last year I referred to him as Burgess Owen. I screwed that up, and I want to apologize, Representative Owens. I screwed up. It was my bad. But he is, of course, a black man and a Republican, so that makes him all kinds of bad things according to the tolerant, inclusive left. Because as we all know, you're more than welcome as long as you adhere to the orthodoxy to the letter. As soon as you step out of the orthodoxy, you are to be shunned and destroyed. We've seen that time and time again. In fact, look no further than Teen Vogue. The executive editor of Teen Vogue, which has become a political rag, is under fire for some anti-Asian tweets she made decades ago when she was in college. I should say a decade ago. Twitter wasn't around decades ago. But she was in college and she made a couple disparaging tweets against Asians. And she's under significant fire for that, rightfully or wrongfully so. And it's up to you. Personally, I believe people are allowed to make mistakes. Even if they say stupid things, if they own up to them and don't do that anymore, then I'll forgive them. I try to be a Christian. God knows I'm a sinner. I sin every day, multiple times. But I try to at least behave towards others according to the proper rules under Christianity and Judaism, for that matter. Judeo-Christian values. We're all under the same umbrella in a certain sense. And one of those is forgiveness. And so I forget her name, but if the chief editor at Teen Vogue says that she's sorry, that she never should have sent it, and she hasn't said it since then, fine. I'm all for that. But Teen Vogue just lost a 7-figure ad buy from Ultra, the beauty products company. Ultra Beauty pulled a $1 million+ campaign buy from Teen Vogue. That's a lot of money you have to make up. That's a lot of money you have to make up. So we'll see where that goes. Anyway, back to Representative Owens. He is, like every other Republican in the House, in favor of voter ID. If you need an ID to do basically anything else in this country, why should you be allowed to vote without one? Wisconsin has voter ID, and God bless it. Texas, where I'm hoping to move no later than January of 2022, has it as well. Yes, we are looking to finally move to Texas, but it won't be for another, 18 months, whatever months. January of 2022, hopefully. 2023, sorry, 2023, hopefully. We'll look at it around then. But, so, Owens was accused of bias against blacks and Hispanics for believing in voter ID. And specifically by one Adam Morgan. And Adams tweeted, "Want to see some serious racism? Study the history of how voter ID laws have been used. This game is fun. You're pro-racism one way, anti-racism the other. Your bias is showing. Universal background checks affect everyone. It is trivial to write it so it isn't a racial thing." Okay, two things about that. First of all, who cares, Adam? Who cares? Adam, near as I can tell, let me click on this further. I should have opened it up. Adam has a fake profile photo. It looks like Bernie Kovacs eating a pork chop, actually. But so Adam hides behind a fake profile, and he accuses a black congressman of being a racist for backing voter ID. So Burgess comes back. You want to see some serious racism? Study the history of how gun control laws have been used. Boom. Game, set, match. QED, in other words. God bless you, Representative Owens. Now, I did not know anything about this story. If you're a Georgia native, I'm sure you know all about it. There was a young man named Kendrick Johnson, and he died some years ago in very strange circumstances. He disappeared one day and was found some hours later in a rolled up, upright gym mat. So, you know, gym mats, those big padded things that you put on the floor when you're doing things like tumbling, and some places use it for wrestling practice. So you don't get sweat all over the floor. But I used to be a real good tumbler, believe it or not. I was a great tumbler, especially the mini tramp. I could vault over, I think, 18 feet of 15 feet. 15 feet of stacked vaulting columns, and then tumble on the landing every time. Every time. I was a real good tumbler, too. But then my back went out and I was never able to do it again. But anyway, so this poor young man was found inside this rolled up gym mat. And again, it was upright. And it was a real mystery. Now, I didn't know anything about this, but I put out that post yesterday about how I called Governor Kemp in Georgia. I called his office, actually, of course. And I told them in no uncertain terms that Governor Kemp and Secretary of State Raffensperger are directly responsible for that $2 trillion pork bill being passed and ruining our economy some years down the road when the inflation from it kicks in. And remember, the Democrats aren't done spending yet. Not by a long shot. Some of the entitlements that are in this bill that are supposed to only go a year, I guarantee you they'll continue forever. Democrats never let a good entitlement go to waste, ever. The more money you give people and keep them beholden to you, the more power you have over them. That's the Democrats' plan since 1965, and it's been working pretty consistently, except for the an off and on here and there. But anyway, so I made that post. And by the way, if you go to the web and just say call Arkansas Governor Kemp, the number is right there. And a very nice lady talked to me on the phone. I told her how I felt about how they had ruined this country by not being able to run a simple election. I did not blame them for what they did after November 3rd. I left that completely out of the conversation. What I said was it was what they did before November 3rd that created such a problem that Georgia couldn't even elect one Republican senator this term. And again, the lady was very nice. In fact, she was kind of jolly. Very happy lady. she made me feel great when I was done. But I called. I called. And you should too. And I told her I'm not a constituent, and I spelled out my name, gave her my full name, and I said, here's where I live, and here's what I think. I strongly urge you to do the same. Can't do it to the White House now. They've cut off all that stuff. So anyway, so I made that comment. And on the YouTube comment, I got a response. And it pointed out the Kendrick Johnson case and how it had been reopened. And I didn't know anything about it. So I looked up Kendrick Johnson and I found this article. And here is a picture of Kendrick's family, his dad, Kenneth, and his mom, Jacqueline. And there's a picture of the poor young man. I don't know if he was intending on going to UNLV or what. It's odd for a Georgia guy to be wearing a University of Northern Las Vegas hat, but Nevada, Las Vegas. Sorry, pardon me, Nevada, Las Vegas. But I guess it was a thing. But anyway, so this poor young man was found dead in January in 2013. Now, initially, the autopsy said that he died of positional asphyxia, and that it appeared that he had lost a shoe and had gone into the mat to retrieve it. Now, I don't know any more details than that, okay? So I can't tell you where the shoe was, how he was found, if he was holding the shoe or what, but it's obvious that he was face down, or head down in this mat. Again, it was upturned, head down in this mat. And once you're in a position like that, you will suffocate. If that is tight quarters at all, you will suffocate because your lungs will fill with fluid because of the added blood pressure from having your head down. And the county sheriff's office, the Lowndes, Lowndes, Lowndes County Sheriff's Office closed the case. Now the family still thought that he was killed, and they believed it was a hate crime. Now I'm not in their family's heads. I'm not going to say that that's righteous or wrong, but that's how they were thinking. They lost a son, a young son. Nothing more tragic than that, in my opinion. Nothing more tragic than that. And so I'm sure their grief is overwhelming. To this day, I'm sure of it. So I'm not making light of anything they've said at all. Don't get me wrong. So the family requested a second autopsy. And that one said that the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the right side of Johnson's neck. And the, quote, manner of death was not an accident. Okay? So, this went to the feds, because now this was viewed as a hate crime. Okay, now, I don't know any evidence that pointed to it being a hate crime, but that's how it wound up with the feds. It was seen as a civil rights violation. And so the feds looked into it. Now, again, according to the article, and this is from NPR by Rachel Treisman from just a couple days ago. In October 2013, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Georgia announced a federal criminal rights investigation into Johnson's death. Officials interviewed nearly 100 people, scoured tens of thousands of emails and texts, reviewed surveillance videos from the high school, and consulted with independent medical examiners. The Justice Department closed the case in June 2016, saying it could not meet the high legal threshold needed to file federal criminal charges. It would have needed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone had killed Johnson and was motivated by racial animus to do so. Acting U.S. Attorney Carol Rendon said at the time, quote, "We regret that we were unable to provide his family and friends with more definitive answers about Kendrick's tragic death." Well, they have reopened the case. And specifically, the sheriff's office, Lowndes County Sheriff Ashley Polk. She was retired at the time of the death, but excuse me, sir. I forget, Ashley is a common male name in the South. Gone with the Wind. But anyway, his office has officially reopened the investigation. It did so after receiving documents it had long requested from a Justice Department investigation. Again, the one that closed in 2016. Haven't heard exactly what these documents are. This is, again, a very new story. But Paulk had been trying to obtain those federal investigation documents since April 2019. His initial request was denied, but the Johnson family continued their pursuit. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. There's more to it. It's a pretty long article. You're more than welcome to find it. It's from NPR from the 10th of this month. Rachel Treisman, Treiisman. I will put the link in the chat. And again, this is NPR, okay? So, excuse me just a second. Can't remember my own keyboard commands. Let me put this in the different chats. There's DLive. There's Trovo. And there's YouTube. Okay, in all the chats. So, well, if I see more on this story, I'll try to keep you up to date. Certainly, any of you in Georgia, Laura, if I can lean on you, do please try to let me know if anything pops up on this. Feel free to email me. You've got my email address. And do you have my new email address? Let me put that in the chat again for all of you. Let me do that real quickly, and then we'll get to a Florida Man Friday. I just looked at the clock. Let's see. Forgot my email address for a second. Let's see. Control A, Control C. Okay, so there it is. AHNC_hat, just like the Trovo address, at protonmail.com. I check it every day. So please feel free to update me with anything you care to. All right. You know, it's kind of funny. We finished exactly on time for Stephen Green. Let me look and see if excuse me a second. Let me look and see if he has put out a Florida Man Friday. If not, we have his insanity rap here from earlier today. Oops, let me go back. Columnists, Vodka Pundit. Okay, no Florida Man Friday. He may have quit doing it because again, there hasn't been one since February 19th, and I've only got one new one left or old one left. So I figure let's just start doing something different. So here was Insanity Rap, number 164. The racist ice cream horror has been eliminated. And there is a picture of Rocky Road, one of my favorite ice creams. There's a Ben & Jerry's. Of course, I don't buy them anymore for obvious reasons. But there's a Ben & Jerry's called New York Super Chunk Fudge, I believe is the name of it. It has dark chocolate, fudge, and white chocolate, which really isn't chocolate, but you know, for argument's sake, and white chocolate in it. And it is by far and away the best ice cream I'd ever had. But can't get it anymore for obvious reasons. So anyway, so this is Stephen Green's Insanity Rap. And he starts. Insanity Rap needs to know, why hasn't the press asked the president if his ice cream represents white supremacy? Answer, sorry, we forgot Donald Trump is no longer the president. Before we get to the sordid details, a quick preview of today's rap. Beauty only goes skin deep, but ugly is a marketing campaign. It was a dark and stormy speech, and the government will tell you whether you're independent enough to celebrate Independence Day, and so much more. Shall we begin? First is This Is Not a Sane World, Exhibit 1,000,006. And of course, I will play the video clip that comes along with this. Watch your ears just in case.
And when I'm old and I've had my fun, I'll sell my inventions so that everyone can be superheroes. Everyone can be super. And when everyone's super, No one will be.
Of course, that great scene from The Incredibles, one of my favorite movies, animated or not, great movie. I understand that the sequel was just awful, if depending on your political point of view, I should say, but that's me. Anyway, so what we have here, the headline is Unilever just announced it's removing the word normal from all products to, quote, champion a new era of beauty which is equitable and inclusive. So let's look at this article. This is from Not the Bee, which I do not use nearly often enough. And as you can see, we have a picture of the Gentle Exfoliating Dove Bar. And this is from Doc Holliday. And it says, the word normal is now extremely problematic, folks. From consumer good behemoth Unilever's company press release. Quote, Unilever announced today it will eliminate the word normal from all of our beauty and personal care products, packaging, and advertising as part of the launch of our new Positive Beauty vision and strategy. Positive Beauty, which sets out several progressive commitments and actions for our beauty and personal care brands, including Dove, Lifebuoy, Axe, and Sunsilk, will champion a new era of beauty which is equitable and inclusive, as well as sustainable for the planet. And one more quote. This is from Sunny Jain, Jain, President of Beauty and Personal Care. Quote, with 1 billion people using our beauty and personal care products every day, and even more seeing our advertising, our brands have the power to make a real difference to people's lives. As part of this, we are committed to tackling harmful norms and stereotypes and shaping a broader, far more inclusive definition of beauty. Quoting the article, in their press release, they use the words equity and equitable no less than 5 times. Okay. Folks, my take on this, if you need advertising to, what's the word I'm looking for, support your view of yourself, if you see the word normal on a bar of soap and think that's not fair, I'm not normal, then the problem isn't with the soap, okay? The problem isn't with the soap. Now, the part of that article that really scared me was the more sustainable part. You may or may not like him, but Glenn Beck has been all over Reset, the Great Reset. And part of the Great Reset, and I personally believe in it, and if this gets me pulled off YouTube, fine. Part of the Great Reset is that you will no longer own anything. Everything will be rented. We talked about that a little the other day. And that everything will have to promote a green environment. Everything. And if it doesn't, you will be heavily taxed out of existence. So what that means is, not only do you have to conform according to these rules to be a good person, you'll have to conform to those rules in order to be able to access banking and insurance and the stock market. We talked maybe a month ago, about how the New York Stock Exchange is looking to start adding equity protocols for companies listed on the exchange, especially concerning minority and women in the boardroom. And if you don't meet those standards, I believe you have 2 years to do that. And if you don't meet those standards by then, they will delist you from the exchange, meaning your business is over because your access to capital will be gone. That's where all this is headed, folks. I don't know if you have a family member who's ever been in the military, but if you haven't, beg one of them to join so you can become a member of USAA. It's a great banking and insurance system. They are totally constitutional friendly. Just saying. All right, continuing on. Stephen Green says, the thing about beauty is that it's neither equitable nor inclusive, although beautiful people can be. In fact, we normals tend to think more highly of beautiful people who don't let their inequitable and non-inclusive looks go to their heads. There's nothing normal about people who look graceful and act graceful, and thank goodness for that. But Insanity Rap is probably reading too much into a graceless marketing decision. Unilever certainly understands that in today's culture, nobody wants to admit to being normal. We're all special, somehow. So we can't go around using some face soap that says, for normal skin, on the label. By the way, if you haven't heard of it yet, look up Super Straight. It's a new gender. I should say gender. It's a new sexual orientation. That means you're only attracted to cis people of the opposite sex. Super straight. Use that on Twitter and it'll melt down. I've seen tweets, honestly, posted on other news sites where people have said, if you use the word super spreader around me, I will strangle you with my bare hands. That's a quote. Another one said, I will find people to kill you. So I'm all for it. Laura Weekly says in the chat, I was born super straight and have remained as such. Dog makes the point that ivory is better than Dove anyway. I prefer the facial scrub from Dollar Shave Club. It's a lavender scented with a little bit of pumice face scrub to it. I don't use it often enough, certainly by far. In fact, I've got another carbuncle coming in right here. Hurts like the living daylights. But I really like that stuff. It feels good. It's great for my skin and it smells great. Really good stuff. Again, that's Dollar Shave Club. Just look for safe face scrubs and you'll find it. It's lavender scented. It's kind of a lavender colored container as well. Okay, next up, your daily dose of mostly peaceful protest. There's a tweet from Andy No. Antifa set fire to the federal courthouse in downtown Portland. There are people inside. And again, I'm not going to play it, but I will show you I'll blow up the picture here. You can see the people standing around. This is the backside of the protest area. The protesters are mainly to the left of where the fire is. You can see the columns in front of the courthouse there on the left. But that's part of the protective sheeting, the thick plywood sheeting around the courthouse. And you can see that one corner of it is completely ablaze from the bottom to the top. And after a while, a bunch of riot-geared federal officers, I almost used the T word, federal officers will come out of the courthouse and create a safe space for the guy with the fire extinguisher to blow out the flames. But again, there are people in this building, folks. But all of these charges are being dropped. There's people who unknowingly trespassed on federal property. They're going to jail for 10 years. Just to keep in mind how equitable this country is. Stephen Green says, you wanted an insurrection, Democrats. Well, you've had several in your own cities for almost a year now. Care to do anything about that? Stephen Green puts in crickets and says, we thought not. Next up, the craziest person in the world today. And there's a picture of 46 asterisk behind the podium from last night. And the headline is, Joe Biden's stimulus speech was a complete and total failure. So let's look at that. This is from the National Interest. Written by Conrad Black. I love Conrad Black. Excuse me just a second. I have to bookmark this page in my sources. I had completely forgotten about the National Interest being where Conrad Black publishes stuff. I need to put this in my sources list. Excuse me, real fast. There we go. Great. Okay, so so the article, I'll read a few bits of it here. Let's get a look. President Biden speaks frequently and presumably with sincerity about his goal of national unity. His comparative invisibility, somnolent manner, and reluctance to interact even with the docile national political media, which conducted his campaign for him last year, assure a cooler temperature and calmer political atmosphere than was possible in the pyrotechnics and abrasions of the Trump era. This phenomenon is reflected in the heavy declines in viewership of the news channels, over 40% on CNN, similar drops on MSNBC, and rather less than on Fox. Trump was the great newsmaker, both for those who loved and those who hated him, and the few people in between, and his departure, as it was intended to do by those who voted against him, has made the U.S. a more serene country politically. Let's see, so, Let's see. Here we go. But setting off around the country with the vice president, quote, and the first lady and first gentleman, close quote, to tout the munificence of the COVID relief bill while blissfully ignoring the monstrous crisis on the southern border for which this president is exclusively responsible and whose existence he denies, is unlikely to impress the American public any more, I suspect, than the country appreciated his wan bloviations of Thursday night. And again, as I said in the title to these pieces today, the entire speech was either platitudes or lies, and I'm probably going to wind up underneath that particular thing on DLive all over again for saying that. What are you going to do? See you later, Debson. See you later. Thanks for being here. Really glad to have you. Next up, Stephen Green says, Insanity Rep tried to watch the speech. We really did. But President Porchlight's barking delivery, his content's dark tone, and those lifeless doll eyes. The creep factor was up to 11, and that's without the presidentish doing any inappropriate hair sniffing. Presidentish. Interesting. So today's craziest person in the world is anyone who managed to watch the thing, although we do admire your fortitude. I did not watch it. I just watched the highlights, and I watched them once, and then every time I saw them after that, I skipped through them. Michael North says in the chat, if anyone in the chat might need a very clean, new condition RX 570 graphics card, I'll be selling 2 of them in the near future, and friends get them at cost, which is $140. Friends, jump on that. The RX 570 isn't a bad card at all. Michael, can you SLI those? That's one thing I don't know. Because if you can SLI them, then it's definitely a steal. So I would really be happy to let people know about that. And hello, Sunshine, RN18. Nice to see you. And here is, next up, your daily dose of mandated unity. And here is a coffee cup holding 4 sugar cones of delicious-looking ice cream. And that's Rocky Road in the background there. You can see the marshmallow inside there, and the bits of walnut. God, I'm hungry for ice cream right now. I'll have a couple built bites before dinner. That'll set me. Anyway, so the headline is, ice cream brand quietly changes flavor name amid debate over whether a topping name is racist. Stephen Green says, as God is our witness, we'll never lose sleep over racist ice creams again. So here's the poll quote. An ice cream brand called Bringham's Ice Cream quietly changed the name of one of its flavors after social media outrage over the use of a topping called Jimmy's. The woke O'Haram took offense at the term over its potentially racist origins. Started in New England in 1914, Bringham's Ice Cream previously included a flavor called Just Jimmy's. It changed the flavor name to Just Sprinkles at some point in 2020. Okay, I haven't heard the term Jimmy's used to describe sprinkles in a very, very long time. In fact, I think not any later than 1976, when my friend Steve's mom would drive us to this great ice cream parlor in downtown Chicago, right across the street from the water tower. I mean, right across the street. You could see it from the window if you had the right booth. And I am deeply offended at myself for not remembering the name of the place. I've got one name running through my head, but it's the name of a Cajun restaurant in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I can't get that out of my head. So the names are similar, but that's as close as I can come. All I can think of is Drusilla's. And if it turns out to be the same name, then that's kismet in and of itself. But they had an ice cream called the Eiffel Tower, and it was an ice cream soda with your choice of flavor of soda, and actual soda counter soda, not a can, but actual soda water with flavoring. And I believe I would get the chocolate soda water and 3 flavors of ice cream, and it would be piled up with whipped cream and sprinkles. They called them sprinkles. I remember that specifically. And then it was topped with 2 vanilla wafers. The cookies with the kind of a sugary cream between crunchy layers of cookie. The really crisp things. I love the strawberry ones. Those are or raspberry ones, I should say. Those are my favorite. But they only had the vanilla. But the Eiffel Tower was an amazing piece of work. But again, maybe Drusilla's, maybe not. But there you go. Yes, Picasso says in the chat that her mom was a soda jerk for a while. That's correct. Yes, she was an actual soda jerk. But I didn't hear any time while I knew that sprinkles were being referred to as Jimmy's that Jimmy is racist. If anyone knows why Jimmy would be racist, please email me, because if you say so in the chat, you'll probably get banned. But I may or may not do some research into that. Depends on how little I care, which right now is a lot. But it's just another excellent example of our society moving right along towards a more equitable outcome. By the way, it's obvious this article was written either in Canada or in the UK because it spells flavor with a U. Just saying. And Stevie Green comments, "Oi. Insanity Rap would like to present a short list of genuinely offensive ice creams. Brownie Battered Spouse, Fairy Queen, Dolce de Leche, Mint COVID Chip, Ben and Jerry's, and I can't say that name on YouTube, Hilters, Rocky Road Rage, Oreo." Insanity Rap hopes that clears things up for you and for the confused folks at Brigham's. Next up, and now for a brief moment of sanity, and this is a tweet from Kira Davis. It says, "These fact checks feel more juvenile and petty every day. Trump only left office months ago. How in the hell do you need to fact check something that literally just happened in front of all of us? And why do you need the but? Fact or no, that's it." So let's see what we've got here. This is a fact check from, I guess, Twitter, and the headline is, I can't, let me shrink it because I can't read the headline with it blown up like this. Let me bring it down. Can't read it all the way. Nope, that's no good. I'm guessing it says there was a vaccination distribution plan underway when... Oh, here it is. I'm sorry, it's right below the picture. There was a vaccination distribution plan under Trump, but it has been widely expanded by Biden, according to PolitiFact, Newsweek, and FactCheck.org. Yeah, and? So, obviously, the fact that was checked was when the Biden administration came in, there was already a vaccination plan, which is true. But the fact check has to put in the but. It's been expanded in order to make the previous claim half true. How pathetic. How insanely pathetic, sad, woeful, and disdainful. Stephen Green says, Keir Davis has long been one of Insanity Rap's go-to people when we need a little sanity, and today is no exception. Fact-checking the fact-checkers could become a full-time job for every single unemployed person in this nation and still have a backlog of fact-checks in need of a good fact-check after putting in a full year of 60-hour work weeks. Next up, GTFO like Cornwallis after Yorktown. This is a headline from what looks to be the New York Times. I recognize that font anywhere. And it says, President's Goal, July 4th gatherings with close family. By the way, copy of the New York Times is now $3, folks. $3 for the printed version, printed edition, of the New York Times. It's a tweet from Dr. Naomi Wolf. Wait, what? We need everyone to get vaccinated and keep wearing the mask? Why? If everyone is vaccinated, why wear a mask? By this metric, when are we ever to stop wearing masks? What science did Biden link to this bizarre demand? Yeah, you may want to download this video off of YouTube if you care to. Of course, the replay will still be up on Trovo and DLive for a few days, and of course I upload every full show to Rumble. Just look for AHNC on Rumble, and then I do put half the show up on Gab TV since they have a size and time limitation. It's just easier for me to cut it in half than to try to edit out pieces here and there. But yeah, by using those words in relation to the mask mandate, I'll probably get a strike. What are you going to do? Stephen Green says, President Porchlight has his opinion and we have ours. Let him try to enforce his. Next up, we interrupt this panic mongering, and there's a picture of a vial of the Moderna vaccine. And the headline is the All About Vaccines edition. Jim Garrigiddy Jim, who reports the latest COVID-19 facts and figures for those shrinking numbers of us who still care about such things. Here's the poll quote. The U.S. has generally done a good job of vaccinating the most vulnerable first. 25.5% of all doses administered have gone to those over 75. 53.5% have gone to those over age 64, and 73.5% have gone to those under age 50. And parenthetically, and America has plenty of people under age 50 who have conditions that put them at higher risk for serious complications from the virus. Thankfully, we're already seeing results. Our 7-day rolling average of daily new deaths hasn't been this low since November. The week of December 20, the U.S. had more than 33,000 cases of COVID in nursing homes and more than 6,000 deaths. The week of February 28th, we had just 1,463 cases and 763 deaths. That's wonderful news. Stephen Green says, Insanity Rap understands that promising news, reported in a Just the Facts ma'am style, doesn't generate the hate clicks and Twitter hot takes beloved by more respectable outlets like the New York Times, GQ, or the Weekly World News. But it does the soul of a lot of good to read. Yes? Next up, here's another damn thing we're supposed to be concerned about. This is a tweet from R.W. Latstetter. He has a picture of Bernie in his profile. Attention, Wayne Hill residents. Portsmouth, Ohio. Portsmouth, Ohio. Please stop throwing beer bottles at the drones. They are property of Portsmouth Police Department, and they run surveillance on the property for your protection. We repeat, stop knocking down our anti-drug activity drones. And here is a still shot of a couple. One gentleman who is in a high COVID morbidity. I'll leave it at that. You can see he is in the follow-through of a fling with his right arm, and quite prominent in the lower left corner of the frame is what looks like a Corona bottle. I believe quite sincerely that's a Corona bottle, and it is winging its way towards the drone. And to his left is a young lady who is also in somewhat of a COVID morbidity category, and she has a bottle in her hand and is well ready to chuck it at the drone also. Now, I have to admit, this looks like their backyard. That looks like patio paving to me. So what this drone is doing in their backyard, I would like to know. But Portsmouth PD, you may be buying a lot more drones as long as there's bottles out there. Stephen Green says Insanity Rep was unable to verify whether this is real or a spoof, but we're sitting here practically vibrating at the prospect that it might be real. Well, I'll tell you, that's an overhead shot of two people throwing things. No matter how you look at it, that is an overhead shot of two people throwing things. So I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say 68 to 32, it's real. And let's see. Okay, last one. Getting out a little early. One more thing. And this is a graphic here, flattening the curve. And as you can see, we start off with the gibbon monkey, and move to the chimpanzee, then the upright chimpanzee, Homo habilis, and then Homo sapien, and then a regression down to where we finally have a sheep. And it is titled Flattening the Curve. And Stephen Green says, that's a wrap for today. Come back tomorrow for another Insanity Wrap, assuming we make it that long. Last up, before you go, Insanity Wrap is just one of many regular features on PJ Media, in addition to Steven Cruzer's. Oh, we don't need to read all that. You guys can go to pjmedia.com whenever you like. There are a lot of great columnists there. I highly suggest you subscribe. There's a lot of really good VIP stuff. I'll give you just a showing of it. There's the Fringe podcast with Megan Fox. Rick Moran does some great pieces. He's really good. Tyler O'Neill is also really good. And there are just a lot of great people who write stuff for the VIP section. So I really, really recommend it. But that is, of course, your choice. So I will leave you for the weekend. But we will be back Monday. Migraines, hopefully, left behind at 4 p.m. Eastern. I do apologize so much for missing yesterday. As I said, I hate to miss shows, but I stepped out into the bright sunlight, ironically, for a appointment with my neurologist, who I've been seeing because of headaches. And as soon as I went outside, the bright sunlight, boom, I had a migraine. And it went away a little bit, but as soon as I started to try to put the show together, it came roaring back, and I was sunk for the rest of the day. So I am sorry I missed it, but hopefully Monday will bring better tidings. Wednesday, I will be off. I have to go downtown for another appointment, downtown Chicago, so I will be gone. But the cameras will be up, so if you need to come by and wave hi, feel free. It'll be recorded all the same. And I have another appointment coming up the week after that, I believe. I also have to go downtown for that to see the guy about my thyroid nodule. But that should be it. So, until Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern, be well. God bless. Happy trails. Thank you all so much for being here. Learning curve on the way out, y'all. As soon as I can find it. Bye-bye.
I hope I learned something. I hope I learned something. I hope I learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. You learn something. I hope you learn something. I hope you learn something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. August night.